Thanks to RuPaul's Drag Race for slowly inching its way from cult following to mainstream pop culture, it's safe to say that pretty much everyone knows about drag queens. What drag queen means, maybe you even have a favorite drag queen, mine is Pearl, or maybe you've been to a bar on a night where a drag queen was performing. But regardless, drag queens have slowly been climbing the ladder of relevance for years now. But what about drag kings? Do you know any drag kings? Have you ever seen a drag king show? Do you follow any drag kings on Instagram? When you think about doing drag, what kind of images pop up in your mind? The gowns, the wigs, the crazy makeup, stenciled on beards, baggy jeans, people who identify as female in glitter-covered tuxedos lip-syncing to Justin Timberlake? Male impersonation and drag kings have been at the center of lesbian culture for a long time now, so that's what we're going to talk about today. I found a couple definitions of drag king that I like, but this one is the one that I like the best. And you can find all the articles that I'm going to be pulling my information from today in the description below. And this also feels like a good time to do my I am not a historian spiel. Everything that I say is stuff that I found online that hopefully you can also find in the articles that I put in the sources below. Sometimes I forget to put them there. I'm just a person. I'm not a historian. I went to school for theater, blah, blah, blah. I just say this so people are like, how dare you put this on the internet? You're not an educator. I know, I make these videos because I feel like there's not enough content like this in the world, so I'm gonna put it there. And if you are a historian or a scholar and drag kings happen to be your specialty, then please comment below and share whatever you have to share, and we'll all benefit from this knowledge. And I think I've gotten better as I've progressed from my first lesbian mini history until now at putting some kind of semblance of sources in the description below. I'm trying. But so the definition of drag king that I like the best that I found is: a drag king is anyone, regardless of gender, sexual preference, or orientation, who consciously makes a performance of masculinity. The term drag dates all the way back to the 1600s, before women were allowed to act on stage. So in theatrical productions, you had men playing female characters, and they were known as being in drag, dressed resembling a girl. D-R-A-G. But after the 1660s, when women were allowed to act on stage, the whole scenario kind of flipped, and you had all these female actors playing male characters, which was known as pants roles. My theater history is mixing in with the lesbian mini histories. So fast forward, think of Julie Andrews, Greta Garbo, Katharine Hepburn, all these famous female actors who at one point played a role where they had to be in masculine attire for a character. But impersonation and cross-dressing and male actors and female actors playing a character of the opposite sex or putting on clothes that were associated with the opposite sex, butch lesbians, masculine women, all these things are different than being a drag queen and a drag king. Some people say that drag is all about accentuating masculine or feminine features. Some people have actually criticized drag as being offensive to the sex that you're impersonating. But for the drag queens, you have people like Marilyn Monroe and Madonna and all these, you know, really feminine, diva, iconic type people that you can make really strong, over-the-top impersonations of. And the reason that some people think that drag kings are boring or not as entertaining as drag queens is because sometimes to impersonate masculinity is to tone things down. So instead of that really over-the-top, dramatic, flamboyant, sassy thing that drag queens have going on, you have the cool, like, suave, laid-back, crooner, Elvis type wooing all the girls type thing. That was a microphone. And so if you don't appreciate that energy, it's easy to write off drag kings as being boring and drag queens as being fun. And that's just the really black and white way of looking at it. But we know today, in 2018, drag has gone so far beyond its original origins of men in dresses and women in suits. I mean, just look at the challenges on RuPaul. There's so much fantasy, comedy. If you look at RuPaul alumni Trixie Mattel and Courtney Act, you could not have a bigger difference in styles of drag. It's such an, at this point, at this day and age, it's such an art form that to write all drag kings off as just being boring people in suits, that's you don't know anything about drag kings then, and that's why we're going to talk about it now. As society as a whole slowly begins to understand and accept the spectrum that gender identity is, drag kings have been given the freedom to move away from the strict archetypes of the macho man and the androgynous crooner in the suit to a more vast array of characters, and their performances today can be just as artful and varied as what we saw from Sasha Velour on the last season of RuPaul. Yes, drag kings are male impersonators, but what does it mean to be male? Gender is performative, and everyone's experiences with gender and masculinity are going to be super different, and that variance in identification and orientation in the drag king community is what gives it its richness and what makes it interesting and unique. Some other good quotes you can find in the articles below about drag are, as a trans person, I don't feel that drag is about attempting to emulate the opposite sex, but more a way to transform into my ultimate form. Drag is just dressing up as someone or something other than what you currently are. As someone who exists outside the binary in my daily life, drag helps me fit together the jumbled pieces of the way society perceives me. Costume exaggerating gender signifiers. When I look at the history of drag kings, I become really interested in the 1900s British music hall scenes, maybe because it reminds me of Tipping the Velvet. Oh my, I was gonna gesture to it, but I lent it to a friend. Maybe because it reminds me of Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters, which is a book that I talk about in my Sarah Waters author book review, but it features characters who dress as male performers and do the vaudeville acts in the music halls of England. Yeah, music halls in England were sort of like vaudeville acts in America, and in England, the most popular drag male impersonator artists of the time were Vesta Tilley and Ella Shields and Hetty King, which the character Nan King in Tipping the Velvet is, I assume, named after or modeled after. And they each had like a set of characters that they did. Tilley sang opera and dressed up as a young boy, and Hetty King had a really popular act that she did in a soldier's uniform. And each of these characters came with a different set of songs that they would perform. And they would sing and flirt with the girls in the audience, and it was like a whole show. And that's something that I really wish was still prevalent at more, it is, but not as prevalent as it used to be, is live singing in drag shows, male and female drag shows. And I understand that not everyone's a singer, and for a lot of drag queens, it's all about the dancing and the death drops and the outfits, and they lip sync, and that's fine, but I'm a singer, so I'm really partial to that theatrical aspect of it, and I just think it makes it better in general. So that's something that I think is really cool about the 1900s vaudeville act type drag, is that, you know, they were really up there doing the whole shebang. It was a theatrical experience, and it's something that I think was really, really cool. And that's probably what I would have been doing were I alive at that time. Fast forward from the London music hall scene to the Stonewall era in the United States, and, you know, homosexuality is illegal, cross-dressing is illegal, police are regularly raiding gay bars, brutalizing the LGBT community, and we all know about Marsha P. Johnson allegedly throwing the first brick and inciting the riots at Stonewall. But as you dig through the history and the folklore of what actually went on at Stonewall during that time, you start to hear tell of a mixed-race, butch lesbian drag king named Storme DeLavier. And at one of these police raids, she was clubbed in the back of the head by a police officer, so she turns around and punches the guy in the face, and obviously this crowd of onlookers is gathering and seeing what's going on, and everyone's kind of stopped because she's being forced into the police wagon. And she turns around, bleeding from the head, and yells into the crowd, Why don't you guys do something? And everyone goes crazy and starts fighting back against the cops, and it becomes one of the first cracks in the wall against police brutality in New York. After Stonewall, well into the 90s, Miss DeLavier continued to serve the LGBT community in New York by working as security at popular lesbian bars Cubbyhole, which I've been to a few times, and Henrietta Hudson, which is also still in operation. And during her free time, where she wasn't being paid to be a bouncer at lesbian bars, she literally worked as a volunteer street patrol. She would just walk around the West Village, tall, androgynous, dark, handsome, and legally armed with a state gun permit. She would check in at popular lesbian spots and keep an eye on everything, looking out for any kind of injustice, intolerance, or bullying. And people would ask her, you know, why do you spend your free time doing this? And she said, somebody has to care. If nobody cared about me when I was young, growing up in the South with a black mother, I wouldn't be here right now. She was literally like she was a gay superhero. Lesbian drag king Batman, keeping watch over all her gaybies in the West Village. And I'm sorry if DeLavier is not the correct pronunciation of her last name. That's the one that seemed most right when I was looking at different ways of pronouncing it online, and I'm so sorry if it's not correct, because I have nothing but the utmost respect for this person. And today when I was reading about her and getting everything put together for this recording, I just got so emotional because I find her very admirable. I have nothing but respect for her. Fast forward again from the 50s through the 80s to today, and drag king culture has progressed into more mainstream while still being largely overshadowed by drag queens. A quote that I thought was kind of funny and sad from current drag king Havoc Von Doom in reference to kings being a marginalized community within the drag world is, "It's still a man's world even when they're dressed as women." The treatment of drag kings in the community, the level of respect they get in comparison to queens, is so telling of the sexism that's still looming over the LGBT community today. And it's easy to write off kings as being boring or not as exciting, but what are you really saying when you think those things? Have you really taken the time to inform yourself of the amazing art being created by kings like Phantom, Lucky Johnson, and Landon Cider? You can learn all about those kings and more in an upcoming documentary titled The Making of a King. It's currently in post-production, and you can follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. There are links in the description below with their teaser trailer, as well as links to donate to help them create what I think is going to be a really eye-opening look into the lesser-known side of the drag community, and a side that deserves some longly awaited appreciation from fans of RuPaul and mainstream drag queen culture.
I want to go up against queens. I want to have the same respect. I want to be seen at the same level. I want to get paid the same. I work just as hard. I put just as much time and effort in makeup and costuming and sometimes wigs and bald caps and illusions that I am masculinizing myself. I have a big change from who I am. Give me a chance to show that kings can be just as fierce as the queens.
From Vesta Tilley and Hetty King to Storme DeLavier and Gladys Bentley, who I didn't even talk about in this video, but you can learn all about in my 1920s lesbian mini history video, my Harlem 1920s video, to modern day drag kings taking gender performance to new and creative heights. Drag has been an integral part of the LGBT community since the dawn of time, and there are so many cool, amazing things that I could talk about from different parts of the world all throughout history. So many cool, amazing people, but this video is probably already too long. I'm dreading editing it and seeing how long it is. So I encourage you to peruse the links below and learn more at your own leisure. Thank you so much for your continued support. Please like, subscribe, comment below, and I will see you all here next time.